this is potentially a very exciting day for those of you who love unhaul content, because today I'm going to be talking to you about 68 books that I need to get out of my house. Nothing here is even special. This is not even a dramatic unhaul. This is just all of the books that I've accumulated. I've just seen another stack. It's not 68, guys. I've just found this many more books to add. So that is 76 books that I'm going to be unhauling in this video. So the majority of these you have seen before. This is just an accumulation of everything since the last time I filmed a proper unhaul video, which I think some of these books I know for sure are from videos that I made in like November, early December. So I don't think I've done an unhaul since then, but you will have seen a lot of these around if you're like up to date on my content, because we have stuff from the conclusion of the GSFF series I was doing. We have my self-destructing books from the recap I've just done in March. There is everything that I've scrapped from Shelve It or Scrap It. And then just generally stuff that as I've been reading, I've been telling you guys that I'm not keeping. So I was going to sort all of these out so that we knew where they were coming from. So I could say, these are all of my GSFF books, these are all these things. But they've all kind of just ended up jumbled up, and there's now so many of them that I actually don't want to do anything about it. So we're just kind of gonna grab at stuff. I'm gonna give you a brief overview of why I'm unhauling them, and then I'm going to donate them, sell them, do whatever it is that I'm doing with them. So the first one that I have is Splintered by A.G. Howard. This was one of my Patreon picks. It's a YA fantasy. I ended up liking it to some degree. I liked the angst of it because it was published in like 2015 or something like that. It was before that, right? 12 maybe? 2013. So I liked all the angst and drama in that regard, but it's an Alice in Wonderland retelling, and I don't generally like the whimsy of Alice in Wonderland because I like a hard magic system. So I read it, had a decent time. Won't be continuing on with the series. I have very recently read and really enjoyed Feybound by Sarah El Arifi. I had 2 copies of this because it came in the adult fairy loot and also the GSFF subscription for December. And because I love the final strife so much, I decided that for the time being, I would keep both of the editions. But now that I've read it, gave it 4 stars, really enjoyed it, but like it less than I like the Final Strife, the Ending Fire trilogy, I've decided that I'm just going to keep one edition, and it's the Goldsboro one that I'm keeping, so I'm going to be unhauling the fairy loot. I also recently finished the Wicked Villain series by Katie Robert, and somewhere in these stacks, here it is the 5th book in the Wicked Villain series. So I have already given the first 4 books in the series to my nail tech who read them and enjoyed them. And now that I finished book 5 and 6, I'm going to be unhauling these as well. These are erotic Disney villain retellings. I enjoyed the beginning of the series more than I did the end. And I actually, because of various reasons that I talked about in one of my recent vlogs, I don't really love smut anymore. I don't mind smutty romances, but books that contain a lot of smut, especially from the beginning, I'm not a massive fan of anymore, so I don't need to keep these on my shelves. I won't be rereading them. In an episode of Shelve It or Scrap It, I read Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I really liked the writing style in this one, and I really enjoyed the beginning, but I didn't think that that kind of carried through to the end, and I got a little bit bored in the middle. I was potentially going to wait until the 3rd book in this series was released to see how kind of people felt about it, to see whether it was worth my time continuing, but since I've read this, I've pretty much forgot everything about it, sadly, and so I've just made the decision that I'm not going to continue on with this series. I have read and recently really enjoyed Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. This one is, I still don't know if it's YA or adult. It could be either. It has some graphic content and older love interest, but other than that, it's pretty suitable for a YA audience. While I did enjoy this, I do have the fairy loot editions of this series. All of my paperbacks are tatty, secondhand and mismatching. So what I'm doing is, as I'm reading this series, I'm reading the paperbacks and then unhauling them and keeping the fairy loot hardbacks. Oh, I was looking for this. This one is, I need to check for bookmarks when I'm going through these because I am concerned that I keep accidentally unhauling bookmarks. This one is the final book in the Savage Land series, which was my Patreon book club series for the last 6 months. And and I liked the beginning of it, but I started losing interest towards the end. I felt like it was longer than it needed to be. I felt that book 5 was completely redundant. There's a lot of repetitive stuff that happens in this series, and while the thing that I loved about it at the beginning was that it was super addictive, fast-paced and compelling, that kind of wore a little bit thin as we went on in the series, and I'm so glad that this is over and I'm going to be unhauling all 6 of the books. While we're talking about really big series, I am actually going to be unhauling all of the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series books that I own. I have not read any of these. I think there's like 15 of them in total. I picked them all up at a charity shop for 99 pence each, and I just knew that it was like an urban fantasy paranormal romance series that a lot of people really loved when I was getting into the genre in like 2020. And as soon as I hauled this, a lot of people said like, oh, Laurel K. Hamilton's the queen of reverse harem, which is actually a trope that I really don't like. The reason that I don't particularly like it is because I feel like when you have so many love interests, they're not developed to a degree that I like, which I know the series goes into it a little bit slower, but generally it's not a trope that I'm super interested in. It's not like a buzzy trope for me, and somebody on Instagram actually messaged me and has taken all of these off my hands, so I haven't lost any money on them because I'm selling them like for the same price plus postage, which is pretty good actually. I'm really happy with that because I was in a mood, a certain mood, and I bought all of them on a whim in a charity shop, and then I kind of felt bad that I didn't even try them, but I didn't want to. Like, I don't want to read this series. I also recently read Ace of Spades by Farida Abike Ayamide. I really enjoyed this one. I listened to the audiobook while I was painting my bedroom, and I feel like it definitely kept me entertained because it is a thriller and it wasn't like a 5-star thriller for me. I unhaul the majority of like the thriller and horror books that I read because once I've read them once and I know the plot twists, unless there was something really special about them, I don't keep them. So this one I will be unhauling. At some point last year, I think, maybe, was this in the Spookoplathon? I read The Girl in Red by Christina Henry, which is a adult horror. I enjoyed this one more than I enjoyed the 2 Alice books that I read from Christina Henry, but I thought that the ending was so bad. I did have a really good time reading this though, so I have kept Lost Boy for now, and I am going to be reading that at some point in the future, but I think just based on what I've read from Christina Henry so far, the books kind of like thrillers for me that are entertaining in the moment, but after that I have no use for them. I have actually just seen another book. So I read The Book Thief at some point last year, and I've had this book for a very long time. I've been with Curtis for 8 years and my ex-boyfriend's grandma bought me this book, and I know that it's a book that everyone loved, so I had high expectations for it, but sadly as somebody who doesn't love historical fiction, especially war fiction, I didn't feel any type of way about it. One of the books that came up for Shelve It or Scrap It that I didn't even really try because I didn't want to read it was Princess of Souls by Alexandra Christo. I read about 30 pages of it and it was fine, but I just felt like it was the kind of YA fantasy that's good for the time that you're reading it, and like with some of the other books here, it's not really especially groundbreaking, and so I decided to just cut my losses. I also have The Roommate by Rosie Danan. I have not read this, but I read The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Danan, and it was the only 1-star review I've given in the last 4 years. So I decided that I'm not even going to try The Roommate. Queen of Empire by H.R. Moore. I have read another book by H.R. Moore and it was fine, like it was a 3-star for me. So this one I've decided that I'm just not that interested in reading it. Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. I gave this book 5 stars many years ago, so I just don't really remember anything about it at this point. I used to read movie adaptations and collect them, so that's how this, like, I ended up with this, but at this point I just don't think I'm ever going to revisit it. Northern Lights by Philip Pullman. This was another 5-star read for me about 5 years ago, I think. I did really enjoy it at the time and I intended to continue, but at this point, I mean, I'm feeling some type of way now that I have so many books and I'm trying to get through them as quickly as possible so that I can get the amount of books I own down to a manageable level where I just don't have a lot of joy in keeping books anymore. So it is sad and I'm trying to get that back, but part of getting that back is getting my books to a manageable limit, and until I get to that I feel like I am going to be unhauling 5-star reads that I just don't think about too often anymore. Fruits Basket Volume 1, I am really sad about this one. I have heard really good things about the Fruits Basket manga and I tried this one. I enjoyed it, but people say that the anime is just as enjoyable, so I think based on my enjoyment of this, if I do decide to continue on with this story, I'm going to go the anime route instead. Another book that I tried for Shelve It or Scrap It and DNF very quickly was Brutal Mate by Lisa Vino and Tabitha Black. This is one that I picked up for free at Rare in 2022. I think, and I only picked it up because it was free. I found out it was an alien romance and it also contains knotting, which I don't particularly think is for me, which worries me because at some point I want to read Bride by Ali Hazelwood, but I could have finished it. Like, it was enjoyable. I just didn't see the point, so I DNF'd and I'm unhauling. The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzon. I expected such good things from this. I'd heard such good things and I disliked literally everything about it. I thought that it was so bad. So I'm very, very happy to be saying goodbye to this one, although I am sad because it is stunning. I also DNF'd Black Leopard Red Wolf by Marlon James. This is a book that people either love or hate. I did not feel that strongly about it either way. It does have a lot of really graphic depictions of violence and really horrific things, and while it's not necessarily gratuitous, it's just the extent of how unpleasant this book was. I just didn't want to continue reading it and I DNF'd. Then we have some of the GSFF books, so I will link you to that video if you want to see the full details on what I thought about these, or I'll link you to the series. I'll put the playlist in my description box. But we have The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. This one I DNF'd. Age of Ash by Daniel Abraham, which I thought had a great concept, but the execution was quite boring. Absinthe by Brendan P. Bellicott, I also DNF'd. Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chupeco, I sadly DNF'd because I have read from Rin Chupeco and enjoyed Rin Chupeco before. Lost in Time by A.G. Riddle, I actually really enjoyed, but it's almost like a sci-fi thriller, so like with the rest of my thrillers, I don't see the point in keeping it. Among Thieves by N.G. Kuhn, this was the first one I read for the series and it wasn't good. I did not enjoy it. Can I dig any more of those out? The Immortality Thief by Taran Hunt is another one that I really enjoyed. I'm still on the fence about this one if I'm being honest, because I did really enjoy it. It's a sci-fi horror. Is there a sequel to that in the works yet? Okay, so there is a sequel going to be published in 2025. I might keep this. We'll see. I enjoyed that one. It's just that at the time that I put it in the pile, I was like, yeah, I can live without it, but actually no, I might keep it. If we get into the books that I did for the 2023 round of self-destructing books, which I recently revisited, I will link that video for you as well. But we have, I read none of them, but we have The Supreme Lie by Geraldine McCaffrian. There is actually 2 editions of The Book of Night by Holly Black. Holly Black is an author that I just don't really enjoy her writing style, so this one is the Fairy Loot edition. Oh, The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Adier. This one, actually, let's just, can I get back? Yeah, let me get back to my self-destructing books for a second. Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. This one languished on my shelves forever, which is how it ended up in the list anyway. Cloud of Sparrows by Takeshi Matsuoka is actually very highly rated if you like historical fiction. Havenfall by Sarah Holland. By the Night by Bridget Camera. These are just ones where I wasn't super invested. I was never going to pick them up, and I didn't even pick them up when the risk was that I would have to unhaul them. The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones. Guinevere Deception, I've read from Kirsten White before and not enjoyed her. The Unsinkable Greta James by Jennifer E. Smith, which I feel like I would have potentially enjoyed, but it's just like a contemporary. And then the Illumicrate edition of Book of Night by Holly Black as well. So I think that is all of those. So back to some random ones. We have The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Adier. This one I read and enjoyed, but I picked the sequel up on Kindle and I don't feel the need to own it. I feel like I just want to read it and it's not impactful enough for me to want to keep it on my shelves. And then this is a very, very recent one. I think at this point I posted episode 3 of Shelve It or Scrap It, but we have Gone, Lies and Light by Michael Grant, which I'm sad about because I didn't want to read it. I started getting into it and then a dog started dying and I literally threw it to the bottom of my bed and was like, absolutely not, we're not doing this today. Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. This one is about a woman who is running away from her past and she marries this famous guy who is murdered and she's kind of blamed for it, which means that her past catches up to her. I do remember enjoying this one, but like all the other thrillers, it is a thriller. In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. I had 3 copies of this. I was supposed to get an art from the publisher. It went missing in the post, so they sent me a finished copy like a week before release, but I already had pre-ordered the Waterstones edition with the gorgeous sprayed edge, and it was the adult book for Fairy Loot as well, so I just don't need a standard copy of this. And back to some GSFF books. We have Mindwalker by Kate Dillon, which is one that I DNF'd. The Actual Star by Monica Byrne is one that I gave 4 stars to. It's like a literary sci-fi involving time travel. Really enjoyed this one, but I'll never reread it. Wild and Wicked Things by Francesca May. This is like 1920s flappers scene and I DNF'd it. I think that's all. Oh wait, no. Let's move down. Shield Maiden by Sharon Emmerichs. This one I enjoyed, but it was fine. Like don't really have any thoughts about it. City of Lost Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky, hated the writing style in DNF. And The Witch and the Tsar by Olesya Salmykova-Gilmore, which I thought had a lot of potential but could have been a duology or a trilogy because it felt very rushed and like smushed together being a standalone. So the last few that we have Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, which I gave 3 stars to. I enjoyed the romance, but this should have been a World War I romance. The fact that it was fantasy made it not a very good book. I just don't feel like the fantasy was well executed at all. And this truly does feel like Rebecca Ross wanted to write a World War I fantasy, but she is published as a fantasy author, so she had to have it fantasy to make it into an actual book. I know a lot of people love this one and the Fairy Loot edition is gorgeous, but I was not a fan. She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. This is one that I wanted to love, but I felt like there was a lot of really strong like emotional plot lines in here, and I just didn't feel like they were executed in a way where I was really like invested in the drama of it, and I feel like there was definitely potential for that with this one. I don't even remember reading most of these. Oh my god. The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. This one is a Christmas romance. I don't like Christmas romances. They give the warm fluffy vibes of a Hallmark movie, but it takes me too long to read them. I don't need the warm fluffiness for that long. The Stranger Upstairs by Lisa M. Matlin. This was like a horror that I really enjoyed, about a woman who moves into this house that's a murder house, and things start to go very wrong and she doesn't know if it's the house that's like doing it to her. I really enjoyed this one, but it is like it has plot twists and like a lead up to some stuff. I did really like the end of it, but I will never reread this one because it is kind of like a thriller. I had the whole series on here, right? I'm unhauling the, what's this series called? The Scholomance series by Naomi Novik. Y'all know I love and hate this series. I gave them all 3 stars because I love the main character, I love the setting, I love the concept, but I despise the writing style. So now that I finished this one, it actually upsets me how these could have been so much better than they are, so I'm unhauling those as well. Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. If y'all know me at all, you will know that I don't like this book. I don't like it. Look how big it is. Look how much space it's taking up on my shelf, and I don't even like it. This makes me so mad. This is one of the books that literally makes me so mad. It's a standalone epic fantasy just for the sake of being a standalone epic fantasy, because standalone epic fantasies aren't done. This is the reason why they're not done. All of that build up for literally nothing, and it's a brick of a book. And then I literally don't, oh no I do. This is The History of Wild Places by Shea Earnshaw. I think it's a fantasy book. It doesn't say, it just says December 2021. It's kind of like a thriller, again, like a thriller, horror, slightly fantastical book. So while I did enjoy it, I have no need to keep it. I think that's everything. I think that is all of the books that I'm unhauling, and I feel like, sorry, I'm squinting because I don't have my glasses on and I'm looking at how long I've been recording. I feel like I got through that faster than I anticipated, which is something that I'm definitely real happy about. So I'm sorry if I'm unhauling, as usual, I'm sorry if I'm unhauling any of your favorite books. I know a lot of you guys are going to be mad, especially about Divine Rivals, but it is what it is. These will all be going off to new homes somewhere that is not my home, which I'm extra thankful for, because literally I had 4 piles like up to the middle of my thigh full of books that I just needed to leave. And then because I had so many, I was procrastinating on filming this video and I truly did not want to do it. But now it's done and I can get on with donating, selling, whatever it is I'm doing with these books. But down in the comments, leave me a dragon emoji. Oh yeah, y'all are gonna be sad about this as well. Leave me a dragon emoji for Priory of the Orange Tree. And aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. If you head to my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as links to my Bookish Candle website, the Etsy for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.